No, 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 no. Wait. Wait.
Here is a blog post for our amazing sound system in Payday 3.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
Oh boy, that's disappointing. Well, I was actually hoping that we would get some sort of update from the Payday team this week, but with the blog post we didn't get anything, so I kind of scrambled last minute to put something together, just because I kind of wanted to talk about Payday, as I haven't talked about it in a while and I haven't really been thinking about it a lot, and of course I kind of like talking about this game. It's good fun, so I'm going to do it again. So in this video I wanted to kind of expand upon the point that I made in my year 2 looking forward video, which was the collabs. I kind of just sort of spitballed a few out and I didn't really give it any thought, but this video I want to sort of give a handful. These aren't like probably my most wanted ones, but these are the ones I could actually sort of come up with cool ideas for, I guess, and ones that I thought would be fun additions as well. 2 of these are ones that I genuinely want. 1 of these I think is a really fun idea, and then 2 of them are ones I see a lot online and I think could be fun as well. It's a bit more distributed. The first 2 are the ones I see a lot online. The third one is the one I think would be really fun, and the last 2 will be my personal picks that I want to see in the game get added. So that's enough waffling from me. Let's get into it. Now, of course, these ideas probably won't happen. A lot of these IPs have been dead for a while or have recently died, and that's the reason I'm picking them, because I think it's more funnier. And also, I won't be talking about any previous collabs from Payday 2 except for one. And when I say collabs, I mean the big collabs, so like Hotline Miami, Scarface, John Wick, because I'd rather not just keep retreading them toes and keep saying, oh, I want these old collabs back, because yes, I want these old heists back, but I think there's not really a point in that, and I think it's more fun to talk about stuff that doesn't exist than stuff that we already know exists, and we just sort of take up half the list of stuff that's already out there. So these are 5 brand new IPs, except one of them, because as I was coming up with the ideas, I found out that they did do a collab with Payday 2 for an outfit, and that was it. But I think you could do a lot more. And before we get into the list, if you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe if you do enjoy it. I will be making more stuff like this. And also, if you actually have any other ideas, leave them in the comments. I would love to see some more ideas, and if I get enough, I might do another one of these lists. I'm probably going to do one for film and TV, because I didn't do any film and TV in this list. It was all video games. But yeah, please leave suggestions in the comments. I would love to hear some cool ideas, and obviously it would make the content better if I can spitball ideas back and forth with you guys. So cheers. Anyway, let's get into it. Saints Row. No, not the new one, the old one. And I know Payday 2, as I said, had an outfit in collaboration with Saints Row, but that was it. I would love to see more from this IP, because I think Saints Row is actually a really good IP to pull from, especially for Payday. Now, I am very sad in the way that Saints Row turned out, and I think it's a shame that they let not only the studio die, Volition, but also the IP completely die. So if it's not being used, why not just sort of throw it out there? Deep Silver publishes Payday 3, and Deep Silver, of course, owned Volition and therefore the IP for Saints Row, so this is probably the most realistic pick on my list for a collaboration. But the real question is, would Deep Silver want to do it? Probably not, because it highlights how bad of a company they are, but I still think it has a lot of potential. So first of all, let's go over the basic stuff. Masks. Well, masks are probably the easier part. You could go with the energy drink guy from Saints Row 4, as he's a pretty funny looking guy. The Johnny Gat mask, which appears in most games, as they're 2 iconic characters and iconic sort of designs from Saints Row that really do pump a lot of that Saints Row feel into the game. And I think for other masks, you could really do any of the villains, like the luchador masks that appear in Saints Row, or just basic bandanas with the Saints logo on it. I honestly think, other than the first 2 I mentioned of these masks, I think that a lot of other masks that you could sort of throw out there, they're not as good, unfortunately, because you have 2 pretty good ideas for masks and everything else kind of falls flat, which I think is a bit of a shame. But I think weaponry is where Saints Row would shine. Now, Saints Row weapons look a bit different to real life counterparts, and I want to pick some more uniquely styled firearms in this list, so I'm not going to really go with too many safe picks. There'll be a couple ones that I still really want in the game, but most guns I pick will be different. They won't be generic firearms like simple pistols or ARs. There'll be something some spice to them. Now, of course, when you think Saints Row, most people will straight away think of things like the dubstep gun, the penetrator, weapons like this, but I don't really want to go with these weapons. They're a bit too silly in my opinion, and especially in Saints Row 3 and 4, the weapons are a bit silly. So I actually just went to Saints Row 2 and I found quite a few guns there that I think would work perfectly in Payday. First up, the Cobra pistol, a fully automatic pistol which has a low rate of fire. Very unique gun with a unique style to it, and I think it would work really well in the game and give a fun twist to it. The Steyr M1912, it could be a very fun addition in my opinion, and it isn't just a basic pistol that we've seen pretty regularly added to Payday. It being a fully automatic pistol also means it fulfills a small niche that's in the game already that we don't really have a lot to fulfill that role, and it being a slow rate of fire semi-automatic pistol means it doesn't take away from potential other guns that get added in the future, like for example a CZ75 Auto, which could be added in a few years. We don't know what gets added, but I think a slow rate of fire pistol that is fully automatic would be a fun addition and very unique. Next is the XD2 Ultimax. Now there is the AA-12, but in this game, this is a bit more of a Frankenstein of a weapon with the Benelli M4, the Striker and AA-12 all coming together to create this weapon. It is a monstrosity of a shotgun and is probably the most unique weapon in Saints Row 2. It is sort of the ultimate shotgun in Saints Row 2 and I think it would be a fun addition to the game. First of all, we don't have any automatic shotguns in Payday 3, so adding one would be fun. And also it has a very unique look to it. As I said, being a mix between the Benelli M4 and the AA-12 gives it a very unique sort of outline and profile that probably no gun would ever even emulate. Now, of course, it being fully automatic and very similar to the AA-12, you would then ask, well, what about the AA-12? And you could swap these around, put the AA-12 instead of it, but this gun is a bit more unique and has a bit more of a style to it, so I think it would be better for a collab for Saints Row. But honestly, you could add the AA-12, and the AA-12 is in a lot of these games that I mentioned, which is kind of funny honestly. But I would like this XD Ultimax shotgun. It's a funny thing and it looks really unique, and I think it would be a super fun addition. And finally, for weapons, I'd go with the X-Mac or the XM8, similar to the G36, but a little bit sleeker, smaller, and a bit faster. It would act as a light AR in the game and would sort of be akin to more of an SMG AR sort of weapon. Think the Peacekeeper in Black Ops 2, which was an SMG that you played more like an assault rifle, but flip it. It's an assault rifle you play more like an SMG. I guess that would be the MTAR from Call of Duty Ghosts then, I think. I think you played that AR like an SMG if I remember correctly. Basically, you would have an AR that you would be able to use more akin to an SMG, but it's slightly better than an SMG in terms of range and damage potential, but of course its rate of fire and especially its handling will not be as good. Again, I think this is a very small niche that isn't fulfilled yet in Payday 3. We do have a lot of heavy rifles with the SCAR, the AK, the Adelig, and then you have these sort of the mid-tier ones like the M4, the Northwest, but we don't have one that really fits that light AR role in my opinion. So I think this would be a great pick, and again, it is kind of an iconic weapon from Saints Row, which is sort of the ultimate AR in the game. For the heist, you can inspire it after the Seven Saints mission, in which a heist is done on the Poseidon Palace, a casino, Hey, Golden Grin, anyone? Of course, it being a casino, you then run into the problem of Golden Grin, but I think you could do a completely unique casino heist. I love casino heists, they're fun, and I really do think Payday needs to do more of them. I think Payday needs to lean more into the strengths of doing classic styled heists from like heist films. We haven't got a lot of casino heists in general in Payday in its entire life. We only really got, I'm pretty sure we only got one with Golden Grin and that was it. We've never had another casino. So I think this would be a fun addition and a great sort of way to tie it into the game of Saints Row with it being a named location. And characters, of course, you have to go with Johnny Gat. There's no one else you can go with. No one from the new game can even come close to him, and I'm sure the voice actor would love to come back to play Johnny Gat again. Also, he's a great character, so let's add him. Now this one I saw online and I instantly fell in love with the idea of it, Army of Two. Now I'm not super nostalgic of this franchise, I'm not even that big of a fan of it in general, but I have played it. I've played I think 2 of the games. I haven't played all of them, I've played a couple of them. But I do like the games in general. They're a fun co-op shooter, and with the newer co-op shooters that are coming out in recent years, I honestly now would look back on this game and would love for it to come back. And the game was fairly unique for its time as well, with a fun gimmick, but in Payday as a collab, I think it has a shit ton of potential to be something really special. And I think that starts with weapons. Weapons there's so many of them in Army 2, I could list so many weapons here, but I wanted to go for a theme here. So I went with Russian or Russian adjacent weapons, i.e. weapons that sort of come from the Soviet Union or Soviet area. These aren't all Russian weapons. One of them is a Czech weapon, but I do think they all fit the sort of Soviet style, if you get what I mean. And these weapons are the Dragunov, which would fulfill our desperate need for a semi-automatic sniper rifle, finally. Now, we could have gone with the Barrett, but I thought that was a bit too heavy, so I went down a tier with the Dragunov, which is a bit lighter and is we need a semi-automatic sniper rifle, and I do actually miss the Dragunov, honestly. I honestly have always loved the Dragunov in any game that has it, so I'd love to have it added. LMG, the PKM, which is a newer variation of RPK, it's just another LMG. We do need more of them, and I think adding the PKM would be a great choice, honestly. It's a newer weapon, and it is obviously Soviet styled. Very cool. And lastly, but certainly not least, the Scorpion SMG. Classic weapon in my opinion. Fun little gun that you could really customize a lot, and Army of Two did have a big customization feature allowing you to really get in depth with weapons. Honestly, there are so many weapons, and I didn't even look at all the lists. I made a very quick list here of guns that I genuinely do like the idea of being added to Payday, but there are so many. You could make 50 lists from just Army of Two. Honestly, I wish I could triple the amount of weapons we could bring in from this game because there is that many. With it being a military shooter, there of course is a lot of weapons in it. Now, characters, you're kind of forced to add two here. The game's called Army of Two, so you kind of need to add Tyson and Elliot. They are the main guys from the first two games, so I think it would be the best to do that. Of course, I know stuff happens in the game, I won't spoil it, but I think they'd be fun additions and they'd be fun characters to add as they are more military focused, so they'd be a cool like juxtaposition there with all the other characters. Now, masks, you have 4 iconic masks from this game. You have Elliot's, Tyson's, Alpha and Bravo's masks. They all look amazing and they're so cool. Yes, they're all ballistic masks, but I don't really care. They all look really cool in my opinion, and I think they'd just be amazing to have in the game, as they would act more as sort of a base template mask as well, which we don't actually have a lot of. Now, for the heist, this was probably the harder thing to come up with, honestly. The game is more focused on military-styled operations, so it's a bit more difficult to do that, but I think the best thing you can do is do something to do with the cartel. The third game has you fight against the cartel in Mexico, so have a heist around the cartel. Okay, so where do we go from that? Well, I then went to Better Call Saul and remembered that scene where they infiltrate the Salamanca compound, and I kind of just thought that would be a fun heist to do, just sort of like a cartel compound. So basically like a big, rich, sort of luxurious house in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, surrounded by a bunch of armed guards, which you have to infiltrate and steal all their drugs, gold, whatever they have. Simple setup, fun idea. I like the idea of it, and of course you could have the characters from Army of Two contract this for the Payday gang to infiltrate, and whatever they take, they keep. So I think it would be a cool little thing to tie in, and honestly, I would just love to see this franchise come back. It was such a unique game, and EA, I think they want to work more with this sort of stuff and bring stuff like this back, so why not? Let's throw it out there. Now this one is, honestly, I just wanted more Japanese based stuff in this game. I think the Japanese style is such a unique thing for video games in general, like the way the streets look, the way that buildings are laid out. I think it just adds a very unique way to make gameplay in general. And Yakuza is probably the most similar in tone to Payday in general. It's a bit goofier, but it is still quite realistic. Now, the reason I picked Yakuza is because I would love to have a heist where we rob a pachinko parlor. If you don't know what a pachinko parlor is a building in which people play with little steel balls, and you can exchange them balls for money. Now, you're probably wondering, why do they do this? Why don't they just gamble like normal people? Well, because gambling's illegal in Japan, and the only way that they can technically gamble is with pachinko. And pachinko is just a funny idea. I'd love the idea of being told to steal the balls. I just think that'd be funny. And I do think a pachinko parlor, because these pachinko parlors can be massive, so I think we could have a really fun heist here. Characters, there's so many from Yakuza as well, but I think you either go the OG, Kiryu, or the new guy on the block, Ichiban. No problems here, honestly. You could go even like Majima or something like that. You have so many choices. Now, the thing I struggled with the most with tying it into Yakuza was the weaponry. There isn't actually a lot of guns in Yakuza, and I actually thought I'd struggle quite a bit with this, but there are a few decent ones in the game that I actually think perfectly fit into Payday 3. First up, the Kar98K. Classic sniper rifle, beautiful bulk action thing. It also does fulfill a slight niche that we don't really have fulfilled at the moment. Yes, I do know we have I think it's a Remington, the Remington sniper rifle in the game, but it's a bit boring. I'll be honest, the Car 98K sounds funnier. But other than that, the only other things that were in the game were a couple of I think there was an SMG, but I went with 2 pistols, the PPM and the Luger. 2 older style pistols, one from World War II and an older Russian pistol. They're simple weapons. They don't really fulfill a niche, but honestly, there was not a lot else here. But I really do think a pachinko parlor heist would be funny. You could also tie this into bringing back Jiro if they wanted to, but honestly, this is what I'd want from anything from Japan. Masks wise, it's honestly a bit harder. Now, there are a few masks in Yakuza that you could use. There is a lot, but I'm not going to sort of sit there and talk about them. You could go with the pink funny one that was from one of the games. I haven't played all the Yakuza games, so I obviously cannot talk about every single mask that was in the game, but there's a lot. There's a lot of options that you could go with, and I think I could sit here for ages just researching it and coming up with ideas, but there's a few. There's a few definitely here, and I think you could have a lot of fun with it as well. I love Ocho. Ocho is probably my favorite indie game that I've ever played. It's of course inspired by Hotline Miami, and if we get Hotline Miami back, why don't we get its younger brother in here? Now, the character will obviously be Ocho, or the wolf, and with him, you can have his white mask come with him, and other masks as well. You can have the weird bug guy that you meet in the game, and some of the bosses as well, like the Legionary, Debrua, Mr. Manslaughter. There's a lot of bosses in the game that you can add to the masks. Now, what about heists? Well, with it being a roguelite, there's not actually a lot in the game that you can use to make a, I guess, unique heist. You have a few things that I can come up with. You either do a basic mansion robbery, which they can basically make the map the mansion from Ocho and you just rob it, or you could do something a bit more interesting in my opinion. What if we have the bartender from the Ocho task us with stealing a bunch of alcohol for him, as alcohol is the main thing that you use in Ocho to power yourself up. So the bartender tasks us with stealing a bunch of alcohol to bring back to the bar. Where can we rob this? Well, I don't really know. I think you do need to do it in the mansion. I think that's the main problem. But I think having these sort of alcohol focused thing would be a fun idea, and I think it'd just be a fun crossover. Weapons wise, there's so many. I think the only one that I really want is the BR6, which is a unique weapon to Ocho. It is an LMG that as you shoot it, as the mag decreases, the rate of fire increases. I think it'd be a very fun idea and a fun gun to add to the game. But other weapons that you could have the 612, I think it's called, the MP40, or the Chris Vector. They're 3 guns that I really liked using in the game, and there's so many other guns. Basically every gun that you can really think of that you would want in the game is in Ocho. So you can go crazy. There's honestly, go with any of them. The only one I really want is the BR6, because that is the most unique thing in the game. So I want that. This is probably like my most wanted one, but I don't think it's very realistic. The one that I do want though a lot, and I would love to see, is Watch Dogs. I'm a massive Watch Dogs fan, as you probably know from my channel, as I've done a Watch Dogs video, and I'm currently working on a Watch Dogs 2 video, which God knows when that's going to be done. But Watch Dogs I think has a lot of potential as collab in general, and even as an IP. First up, characters. What character would you go with? Well, you could go with Aiden Pierce, which I think is probably the safest pick and would probably be the most fan favorite to go with, and I think a lot of people would be excited for him to be added, and it would make narrative sense. Aiden is a fixer, meaning he does whatever for money, so with the Payday gang paying him, he would happily do heists with them. And of course he did a heist as well himself. But I don't really want Aiden. I don't know how to say this, but I think Wrench would be a better pick in general. I just like Wrench a bit more, and of course with him being a masked character already, I think he'd fit in a lot better with the Payday gang. But you could also go with Geordie from the first game in the Watch Dogs 2 DLC, as he is also a fixer, so he would also do anything for money. And of course, Wrench is also not a fixer, he is a hacker. So again, narrative, the reasons there. But if they didn't want to go with a major character, they could go with Geordie. I think he'd be a good pick and would actually fit in with the Payday gang as well. But then again, I think Aiden would be fun as well. I don't know, I'd like anyone genuinely from Watch Dogs. There's a couple masks from Watch Dogs, and Watch Dogs 2 you have a lot of customizable masks that you can unlock. And Watch Dogs Legion itself, which I fucking hate that game, that has a lot of masks itself. The pig mask was its iconic thing, so if you wanted to do a mask from each game, you could do Aiden's mask, Wrench's mask, and the pig mask to represent each of the Watch Dogs games, and then have Default's mask, which he appears in all the games basically in some way, shape or form. Now weapons, this was an easy one. The U100 or the Ultimax 100 in real life, Mark V, a LMG with a 100 round mag, it would be sort of more a light LMG, like a light LMG, allowing you to use it more akin to an AR, but of course it has the drum size of a LMG and the stopping power of an LMG. The ACR, I just like the ACR and I think it'd be a fun AR to add. It's probably the most basic one here, but again, it's a fun addition. And the Goodbye World shotgun from Watch Dogs 2, or what is actually in real life a Mossberg 590. But in Watch Dogs 2, it's customized a lot more with things like drum mags, extended stocks, extended barrels, chokes, whatever you can think of, put it on it. So I guess go with Mossberg 590. It's a pretty basic shotgun, but hey, it'd be a fun addition. Now for the heist of Watch Dogs, you could go with a lot. Of course, Watch Dogs 1 opens with a heist on the Merlot Hotel, so you could tie it into that, or you could do something a bit more unique. You could have a raid on one of the fictional companies like Bloom or Noodle, the Microsoft and Google of them worlds, and I think they'd be fun things to have. Yes, we did have syntax error, which would sort of clash with that sort of style, but hey, one of these would be fun to do, I guess. If you want my personal thought, I think the Merlot Hotel would be a bit more unique. I don't think we've ever had a hotel heist in the game, so that'd be my pick. But yeah, there's not really else I can really talk about. I didn't really want to talk about things like perk decks and stuff like that because I don't think they're good additions to collabs, because I think sort of limiting perks and traits and stuff like that behind paywalls is kind of a scummy thing to do. And I do think, well, I hope that Overkill learnt their lesson with Payday 2 when they lock things behind the Scarface one, which is now inaccessible to some players, which I do know is a big problem. But if you want my opinion, I do think collabs are a good thing for the game, and I think do add a lot of flavor to the overall game's sort of tone. I understand some people will say, well, I want the game to be serious and keep its serious tone. No, we had Goat Simulator in Payday 2. I really don't want this game to be super serious constantly. It's meant to be inspired by old classic heist movies, which were cheesy at times, and I think this game needs to embrace that a bit more and be very open to these sort of more cheesy ideas. Of course, that's what I want. I know not everyone wants that. Some people want this game to stay serious, but I think this game would die if it stays in a very serious tone, and I think going a bit more goofy will keep the game alive, as that's what revived Payday 2 back in the day with the stupid big spoon. Like, that's what this game lives and dies by. But anyway, I think that's enough waffling from me. Hopefully next week we will actually get to see the update that was, I think, meant to come out this, or be talked about this week, the October update, which will be nice because we are getting towards the end of October. We're almost halfway through October now, and we haven't even heard a word on this October update. So I'd like to hear something next week, but I digress. That's enough waffling from me. See you around, Crocodile.